Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayoratha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavalava Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita. Jaya Radha Govardhan Dari Radha Govardhan Dari Shri Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Nityalila Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajapachari Asasat Shishima Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya Jaya Nityalila Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajapachari Asasat Shishima Bhakti Vedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jaya Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jaya ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Chamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Mathura Dhama Ki Jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dhama Ki Jai. Shri Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Yamuna Maya Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai, Shri Harinama Sankirtan Yagna Ki Jai, Cow Protection Ki Jai, New Govardhan Farm Community Ki Jai. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Oh, glories to Shri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agnati Mirandasya Gananjaya Shavakaya Chashvita Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna Kirtan Prabhu sent me a message last night, 10 o'clock. So can you give class tomorrow? So I was told 17. Maharaj already gave a class on 17, so I'll just kind of speak on the topic again. Okay. So, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 17. Questions by Vidura. So, Sanirgata Korava Punyalabdho Gaja Vayatirtha Padaha Padani Anvakramat Punya Chikshya Yorvayam Adistito Yani Sahasramurtihi Sanirgata Korava Punyalabdho Gajavayatirtha Padaha Padani Anvakrama Punya Chikshaya Yorvyam Adistito Yani Sahasramurtihi Sanirgataha Korava Punyalabdho Gaja Vaya Tirtha Padaha Padani Om Vakramat Punya Chiksha Yovyam Adhishtitu Yani Sahasramurtihi Saha Hi Vidura Nirgataha after having quit Kaurava the Kuru dynasty Punya piety Labdaha so achieved Gaja Avyayat from Hastinapur Tirthapadaha of the Supreme Lord Padani pilgrimages on Vakramat took shelter Punya piety Chikishaya desiring soul Urvyam of high grade Adhishtitha situated Yani all those Sahasra thousands Murtihi forms. Translation. By his piety, Vidura achieved the advantages of the pious Kauravas. After leaving Hastinapur, he took shelter of many places of pilgrimages, which are the Lord's lotus feet. With a desire to gain a high order of pious life, he traveled to holy places where thousands of transcendental forms of the Lord are situated. Please repeat. By his piety, Vidura achieved the advantages of the pious Kauravas. After leaving Hastinapur, he took shelter of many places of pilgrimages, which are the Lord's lotus feet, with a desire to gain a high order of pious life. He traveled to holy places where thousands of transcendental forms of the Lord are situated. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Vidura was undoubtedly a highly elevated and pious soul. Otherwise, he would not have taken his birth in the Kaurava family. To have high parentage, to possess wealth, to be highly learned, and to have great personal beauty are all due to past pious acts. But such pious possessions are not sufficient for obtaining the grace of the Lord and being engaged in His transcendental loving service. Vidura considered himself less pious, and therefore he decided to travel to all the great places of pilgrimage in the world in order to achieve greater piety and advance nearer to the Lord. At that time, Lord Krishna was personally present in the world, and Vidura could have at once approached him directly, but he did not do so because he was not sufficiently freed from sin. One cannot be 100% devoted to the Lord unless and until he is completely free from all effects of sin. Vidura was conscious that by the association of the diplomatic Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana he had lost his piety and was therefore not fit to associate at once with the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 7:28, this is confirmed in the following verse: Yesham tva gatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam vrataha. Persons who are sinful asuras like Kamsa and Jarasandha cannot think of Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth. Only those who are pure devotees, those who follow the regulative principles of religious life as prescribed in the scriptures, are able to engage themselves in karma yoga, then jnana yoga, and thereafter, by pure meditation, can understand pure consciousness. When God consciousness is developed, one can take advantage of the association of pure devotees. Syan mahat sevaya vipraha punya tirtha neshavanat. One is able to associate with the Lord even during the existence of this life. Places of pilgrimages are meant for eradicating the sins of the pilgrims, and they are distributed all over the universe just to give facility to all concerned for attaining pure existence and God realization. One should not be satisfied, however, merely by visiting the places of pilgrimage and performing one's prescribed duties. He should be eager to meet the great souls who are already there, engaged in the service of the Lord. In each and every place of pilgrimage, the Lord is present in his various transcendental forms. These forms are called archamurtis, or forms of the Lord, which can be easily appreciated by common men. The Lord is transcendental to our mundane senses. He cannot be seen with our present eyes, nor can he be heard with our present ears. To the degree that we have entered into the service of the Lord, or the proportion to which our lives are freed from sins, we can perceive the Lord. But even though we are not free from sins, the Lord is kind enough to allow us the facility of seeing him in his archamurtis in the temple. The Lord is all-powerful, therefore he is able to accept our service by presentation of his archam form. No one, therefore, should foolishly think that the archer in the temple to be an idol. Such an archamurti is not an idol, but the Lord himself, to the proportion to which one is free from sins. He is able to know the significance of the archamurti. The guidance of a pure devotee is therefore always required. In the land of Bharatvash, there are many hundreds and thousands of places of pilgrimage distributed all over the country. And by traditional practice, the common man visits such holy places during all seasons of the year. Some of the archer representations of the Lord situated in different places of pilgrimage are mentioned herein. The Lord is present at Mathura, the birthplace of Lord Krishna, as Adikeshava. The Lord is present at Puri, Orissa, as Lord Jagannath, also known as Purushottama. He is present at Allahabad, Prayag, as Bindu Madhava. At Mandara Hill, he is present as Madhusudama. In the Anandaranya, he is known as Vasudeva. Padmanabha and Janardhan at Vishnu Kanchi, he is known as Vishnu. And at Mayapur, he is known as Hari. There are millions and billions of such archer forms of the Lord distributed all over the universe. All these archamurtis are summarized in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the following words: Sarvatra Prakasha Tandra Bhakte Sukya Dita Jagatere Adharmanashi Dharma Stapite. The Lord has distributed himself all over the universe just to give pleasure to the devotees, to give the common man facility to eradicate his sins and to establish religious principles in the world. Read the verse again. By his piety, Vidura achieved the advantages of the pious Kauravas. After leaving Hastinapur, he took shelter of many places of pilgrimages, which are the Lord's lotus feet. With the desire to gain a high order of pious life, he traveled to holy places where thousands of transcendental forms of the Lord are situated. Thank you. So, the chapter is about Vidura, continuing. So, we just reflected to the past verses. Vidura and Duryodhana had a final fallout. Duryodhana rejected Vidura. At some point in the material world, the Asuras and the Devas will have a confrontation, either philosophical confrontation or even external physical confrontation. Great battles taking place. Often there is a war between the Devas, the devotees of the Lord, and the Asuric persons. This is the nature of the material world. And Vidura, who was a great devotee, saintly personality, who always endeavored to create peace within the family. He was not particularly against his brother Dhritarashtra or Duryodhana. He tried to bring sense to the activities, trying to remind them that actually Krishna and the Pandavas are the well-wishers of the entire world. There's no need for battle. So Vidura was trying to create that peace. But of course Duryodhana was very stubborn, although highly qualified, but very stubborn. And he rejected Vidura's proposal. Vidura was a very gentle person. And he had a discussion with Dhritarashtra also many times, but his attempts were failing. Of course, even the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna and Arjuna, they tried their best to try to create some kind of sanity and peace amongst the great dynasties, trying to avoid confrontation, trying to avoid any bloodshed, of course. This is a sign of saintliness. A devotee is not aggressive. We don't want suffering. We don't want wars. We want peace and happiness in this world. So of course, Krishna and Arjuna, the Pandavas, in particular King Yudhishthira, they tried their best to avoid a confrontation. But again, the nature of the Asuras, that they're very determined in their agendas, and they're very stubborn also, to the point that they're willing to face confrontations. As Vidura left the palace, since Duryodhana rejected him, his interpretation of that was more a philosophical interpretation. He realized that actually it's better for him also, since he was not so attached to royal standards of living. He left the palace, and as a sadhu generally do, visited all the holy places and revived his original Krishna consciousness. It is very important to understand the importance of visiting holy places and sadhus. All the holy places, like Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, there are thousands, actually millions of holy places in the entire universe, giving a chance to the conditioned souls to take shelter of the Lord, recognize his beautiful form, Archamurti, and Vigraha, form, beautiful forms here. Krishna is manifesting for us. But there's also cautioning to the ordinary persons not to mistakenly think that the Lord, the deity forms, the Archamurti forms of the Lord are simply just an idol, like a statue kind of thing. No, Krishna is there transcendentally. He makes himself available, accessible, so we can offer service, we can offer prayers, we can offer our love and devotion to Radha and Krishna. I selected a couple of verses here. Srila Prabhupada says that Vidura was blessed by the high parentage, royal environment, royal family, Dhritarashtra, King Dhritarashtra, his brothers, King Pandu, Dhritarashtra. They were very opulent, powerful Raja Rishis. Of course, Dhritarashtra failed. He was not qualified, and he misused his powerful position. Although he was blind, but Duryodhana was an instrument for him, his son. He had 100 sons, and Duryodhana was the most ambitious. Therefore, he has a reputation of a asura, technically speaking. So, still, to approach the Supreme Lord with all these advantages, high parentage, education, beauty, great opulence, one cannot fully approach the service of the Lord. Queen Kunti also, as Kunti Devi prays to Lord Krishna, Janmashvarya Shuta Subhihi Edamana Madapuman Naivadhati Adi Hatum Vai Tvam Akincha Gocharam. My Lord, your Lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. So this is a very interesting point, because often when someone is in a very powerful position, materially, well-to-do, aristocratic family, name, fame, follows all the opulences of the material world, often can be a disadvantage, because all these things are distracting us from the real thing. Therefore, we cannot offer sincere prayers from a core of our heart. We fail to get the essence of bhakti. We may recognize the Supreme through scriptural study, but we may not be able to offer sincere prayers, just like Kunti says. One cannot approach you with sincere feeling if he has all these material distractions. This is not always the case. There are great souls who, in spite of opulent life, high parentage, education, they were remaining sincere. But the tendency is that the living entities are often distracted by these material facilities. Is not really beneficial for spiritual contemplation and service. So Vidura experienced that mendicant life. He visited all the holy places and seeing the beautiful forms of the Lord, As he visited all these holy places, he also approached the sadhus. He realized that to increase his love, not to speak of his consciousness of Krishna, he has to hear from elevated, exalted souls. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.16 Shushrosho Shraddha Dhanasya Vasudeva Kataruchiki Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service one gains affinity for hearing the message of Vasudeva. This is a very interesting statements here by Vyasadeva, that when we visit holy places, we have to be eager to search the sadhus, saintly personalities, who are well versed and able to give us Krishna, love of Krishna. On the other hand, Srila Prabhupada states in the Krishna book 778, one who visits holy places of pilgrimage just to take a bath there, but never associate with great personalities, sages and mahatmas. Such a person, even though in the form of a human being, is nothing but an animal like an ass. So we have to be, just like when we come to this temple, beautiful farm community here, and we are sincere to hear about Krishna, Krishna Katha, Bhagavata Katha, trying to revive our original consciousness, trying to feel Krishna's love. And we discuss the topics of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Similarly, when we go to places like Vrindavan, Mayapur, not to speak of so many other places, in India is full of holy places, we should seek out the devotees, Jaina and bona fide devotees, and hear from them. All the holy places really based on Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam. We visit all these places, especially when we, as ISKCON devotees, we go to Mayapur, Vrindavan, visit all the Rajamandal, Parikram. So we go with, in the association of devotees, and we hear about these pastimes of Krishna. We have the great fortune to hear from the local residents, the local Vaishnavas, who have this experience already, studied and they're visiting all these places. And so we have a clear understanding. So we hear about Krishna. Just by hearing about Krishna, we increase our love for him. See, that is how hearing is so important, hearing about Krishna consciousness. Not just about the actual pastimes of the Lord, but even philosophical aspects. The Bhagavatam, of course, gradually leads us to higher realms of consciousness. So we hear from the Vaishnavas who have realizations, and not to speak of an advanced, highly advanced devotee who may be a spiritual master. So we take shelter of that person. So just like here she is. Yasya deva para bhaktir yatha deve tatha gorao tashaite katita I artaha prakashante mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. So this is important verses here, just to support the statements of Srila Prabhupada in this purport, that the visiting the holy places are very important, as Vidura did. Seek out the advanced devotees, take their association, hear about the pastimes of the Lord, and engage in their service. And then we take shelter of an authorized, bona fide spiritual master, and hear from him again with great faith, just like this verse says, who have implicit faith in the words of the spiritual master and the Lord. All the importance of Vedic knowledge will be revealed. This is the grace of the Lord, because we have no actual access without the mercy of the Guru. So we take shelter of our spiritual masters, take shelter of the sadhus. That's what Vidura did. He completely changed his consciousness for the better. He was already a great soul anyway, but he felt contaminated by the association of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. He took the humble position. Therefore, he shied away from seeing the Lord directly. Krishna was present on the planet, but he thought he rather purifies himself before he can even contemplate on the idea to see Krishna directly. So he went to all the holy places. Back to the Archa Murti presentation of the Lord. There are many scriptures on this. The Lord is omnipotent, as we all know, but we cannot perceive him with our blind senses. We have imperfect senses, and we have limitation, what we can perceive. Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is not a subject of three-dimensional experience. He's a transcendental personality beyond our sense perception. And so, on the other hand, as in the Brahma Samhita also explained, that Krishna can be seen with love, with pure love and devotion. We can see him in our hearts. On the other hand, Krishna is so kind, as Srila Prabhupada says, that even persons who don't have faith in the personal form of the Lord and the deity form, Archa, Vigraha, still Krishna presents himself. So we can at least visualize him. The Lord is here. In this particular Vaimedia, marble, brass, the Lord is present there himself transcendentally. So we can offer prayers and service. We can see daily worship is a very integral part of our Vaishnava society, because we need this realization that Krishna is actually a person, and he is present there. Ishvaraha Paramaha Krishnaha Sachitananda Vigraha. Vigraha is Krishna's got a very beautiful form. So we offer our love and service to him. And of course, as Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, that the association of a pure devotee and the guidance of a pure devotee is always required, because this is not a speculative process. We have to actually follow some guidelines to approach the Lord without making any offenses and get the desired result, which is love of Krishna. So the purpose of daily worship is not just some ritualistic thing, but actually to develop our love for him, attachment. They all come in different stages. We become attached to Krishna, we become attached to the process, and not to speak of chanting the holy names of Krishna, which is the Yuga Dharma for this age, very, very important for us. So the holy name, the Archa Vigraha, the Sangha, and the association of devotees are very, very important for a sadhaka. So Krishna is present even for common men, even if they don't have a faith, but somehow or other Krishna makes himself visible. But there's also warning Shastra warns, Padma Purana, Arche Vishnu Shiladir Gurusha Naramatihi. One who thinks that the worshipable deity in the temple is made of wood or stone, one who sees a Vaishnava guru as an ordinary human being, or one who materially conceives a Vaishnava as belonging to a particular caste is Naraki, a resident of hell. So these are warning, because the mundane consciousness, especially if we philosophically not very strong, we can misunderstand who Krishna is, what the deities are. They may misconceive that the Lord is just a stone or statue, an idol, or the spiritual master is an ordinary person. It's a great offense. Srila Bhakti Saranta Saraswati Goswami often quotes this verse in his Anubhasya essay. Anubhasya is an essay by Bhakti Saranta, and he talks many things, particularly Chaitanya Lila. Similarly, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented a Govardhana Shila to Raghunath Das Goswami, and Bhakti Saranta gave a nice narration and explanation about the Lila, and there's a statement that Govardhana Shila is directly the body of Krishna. So Giriraj Govardhan, although comes in a sacred stone, Shila, but he's directly Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada also mentions in the Krishna book that, as Krishna stated to the residents of Rajabhumi, that he is known different from Giri Govardhan, the actual mountain. So great souls, sincere devotees, worship this stone with great love and eagerness. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Raghunath Das Goswami to worship this Govardhan with great devotion. And of course, Raghunath Das Goswami was very blessed, and he realized that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu giving his personal Govardhan Shila. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kept his Govardhan Shila for 2 years. He used to wet the Shila with his tears, ecstatic symptoms. And then he decided to give this Govardhan to Raghunath Das Goswami. And of course, Raghunath Das Goswami realized that he's just a mendicant. He has not much to offer to Giri Govardhan. So, nevertheless, Mahaprabhu's confidential associates, Swarup Damodar, many other devotees, they're providing sweetmeats like Sandesha. Giri Govardhan likes 8 Tulsi Manjaris at his feet. So it's very important. It's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. When we worship Govardhan, we offer 8 Manjaris to his lotus feet. So very, very important. Srimad Bhakti Saranta Saraswati also mentions this. So this story just an example for Krishna's present in many forms, archa forms. And we should be careful not to offend the Lord, rather take the mercy of the Lord by offering service and hear about Him. There's so much scripture here emphasizing that Krishna is omnipotent and is present in this form. So when we offer service, but Krishna is present in an authorized form. He's present everywhere, but He accepts our service from an authorized form. And there are many shastras on this. One is Shilpa Shastra, which is really an art and craft of Vedic knowledge. And they carve the Lord's form, according to descriptions of the Shastra. The various Puranas, but the Shilpa Shastra goes into proper sculpturing, basically sculpturing the Lord's the body proportions. Sometimes they cast like a pancha, the 5 elements. There's some gold, some percentage of gold, silver, copper, zinc. There's some elements there mentioned in the Shastras. Shilpa Shastras are very, very extensive. Tens of thousands of slokas. They systematically explain. Along with the Pancharatika Vidhi, they're creating an authorized, authentic form of the Lord. Such craftsmen are rare to find. There's still some in India, South India, who actually carve the Lord, various, often marble or granite. They also cast these, as I know, like Narasingha in Mayapur, Narasingha deity, actually carved in South India. They followed all the procedures, even astrological calculations, muhurta, timing, to create a form of the Lord which are mentioned in the Shastras, the scriptures. So these forms are present throughout the universe and installed by great souls, great devotees. The Lord is present, invited. So Krishna is ready to accept our services and also give blessings to the fallen souls. Krishna is always ready to help us in many ways. In this day and age, as we know, Kali Yuga is very difficult. So even worshipping the Lord is a difficult thing, because although our worship is very simplistic compared to what in Dwapara Yuga, where was temple worship, that was the Yuga Dharma, temple worship, very opulent, sacrifices, great pomp, the offering actual gold and so many things to the deities. So they were very much around the deities. And there are some examples still in India, like in visiting Sri Rangam or Tirumala, Tirupati, very old temples. You can see the deities were original carvings, a lot of gold, even then, even now, and a lot of pilgrimages. Not to speak of the architecture itself, is very beautiful architecture there, which is connected to the Shilpa Shastra. When they design a building, particularly a temple structure, they involve Pancharatika Vidhi, Shilpa Shastra, and Vastu Shastra, the architectural engineering sciences together. So that's why you see these beautiful temples, and the deities are still worshipped. They're like the remains of Dwapara Yuga, more or less. But in Kali Yuga, all these things are very difficult. Nevertheless, Srila Prabhupada installed and encouraged the devotees to worship the Lord. This is the mood of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Madhavendra Puri, before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, already worshipped the deities. And then, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the 6 Goswamis, they had their personal deities. There's all around, the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita is around deities and a kirtan and a holy name and great devotees. So it is very important for us as sadhakas to approach the Lord in a very personal, loving way. And this way we get the blessings of the Lord. Just like Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sarvatra Prakasha Tanra Bhakte Sukhadite Jagatera Adharmanashi Dharma Stapite. The Lord has so distributed himself all over the universe just to give pleasure to the devotees, to give the common man facility to eradicate his sins, and to establish religious principles in the world. So this basically summarizes the whole purport, why Krishna's form and deity forms and temples, not only in India but throughout the universe. So Krishna is kind to help us, comes in any way, through the Shastra, through through the devotee, through the Bhagavatam, Krishna's teachings, Bhagavad Gita, and of course our spiritual master, they're giving us the Divya Jnana, the very essence, which really culminates in love of Krishna. Feeling those emotions, feeling that full surrender, giving our heart to Krishna. That even Sri Prahlad Maharaj confirms that, the 9 process, 9 limbs of devotional service. Always starts with Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, then goes to Archanam, the Padasevanam, so Atmaniveda, full surrender, self-surrender. So we recognize Krishna in many forms, many aspects, and we, all sincerity, we give our hearts to Krishna in the process. So this is what Vidura realized in these pilgrims, that he can now just focus on developing his actual devotion to Krishna, love and devotion, and take the association of sadhus. So Vidura was not attached to royal standards, living in a palace, unlike Dhritarashtra, who was very attached. He was completely overwhelmed with the idea that he has to leave. And he was very, so he was living on the cost of the Pandavas. What a humiliation. So a devotee is not like that. Devotee does not give too much emphasis on material things, and as soon as we have the chance, we take to Krishna consciousness. We are happy to live simply and serve the devotees. So Vidura was realizing his great fortune, that now I'm free, visiting all these beautiful places, beautiful forms of the Lord, take the association of the sadhus. And so he's setting personal example in one way. He just tried his best to create peace within the dynasties. He was a close friend of Krishna and Pandavas and devotees, Yudhishthira Maharaj. Everyone loved Vidura in one way. He had a difficult task, and he had influence on both parties. He was an expert. Obviously, everyone felt his good intention. But again, Duryodhana, a stubborn, ambitious person, he finally rejected him. And this is when Vidura started his journey and realized his great fortune. So let's realize our great fortune too. Keep serving the devotees. Hear about Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Listen to lectures of our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. And every day we should realize our great fortune, not to be complacent. How blessed we are to be amongst the devotees. Extraordinary. This is extraordinary. It takes a bit of realization, but once we realize, we are so grateful to Srila Prabhupada and to the devotees here. Only a very few of us, but we have this great fortune to be here. And all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Are there any questions or comments? Hare Krishna.
Is there any special kind of material which tea should be made from? You mentioned marble.
Yeah, actually there are many descriptions. Shilpa, when you say Shilpa Shastra, is more like an umbrella under different Shastra scriptures, no? And they all, a long time ago I had a book. It was half Sanskrit and half English. It was printed in 1910 in India, South India. Amazing. And there were actually drawings of deities, proportions, and the whole descriptions of how they call it in English, and when you're doing metallurgy, something like that, dealing with metals, a little bit like alchemy, but just different. And they had like 20, I don't know how many % of gold. There's clear definitions, and there's so many types. Depends on the deity. Like if you carve a demigod, for example, like Indra or Lord Shiva, they had again another kind of guidelines and principles about it. But Krishna's form, and again, depends on the sampradaya also, because if you happen to be in South India, you rather take the help of Sri Sampradaya. They focus more on the Yajur Veda, which is one of the major Vedas. And the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, as we know, we focus on the Srimad Bhagavatam, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a great preacher of Bhagavatam. So there are some lot of detailed descriptions. There's also a fair bit of information coming online now about some of the scriptures are being translated. They're kept amongst stapatis, they call stapati, like sculptors. They were expert in many things, arts, sculpting, carving deities, carving temples, amazing. So one of my teacher was a stapati actually, when I studied this, a great stapati. There's authentic forms. So Krishna is not just kind of a vague imagination of someone, he's actually a proper form. And even the body proportions. I'm not expert in the details of deity making, but there's shastras on it. In general, they call it Shilpa Shastra. There's a lot of detailed things there. And family traditions kept the purity of it without any. And then, of course, once you have the deity form, let's say like Panchatattva in Mayapur, they're all based on proper Panchaloha, 5 elements. And in Sringari deity also carved in a particular black marble, I think. And when I was in Germany, I had the chance to visit Narasingha farm. And the deity of Narasingha is made of black granite, weighs 1.5 tons, and pure ruby eyes. They put ruby eyes, and that was again properly carved, sculpted by South Indian masters according to Vedic injunctions. So how Lord Nrsimhadev, his body proportion, where Prahlad Maharaj sees what the body proportions, everything designed. The master plans to design the deities. And then of course they carve it, might take months and months of carving the deities. So that's what I can say. There are many, many descriptions on this, but there are specific branches of knowledge on this, how to make deities, but they're so vast and so many different descriptions. And just like in Mayapur, they're having all these deities, like the demigods, and they're setting up the planetarium, see, around the main altar. And you can see all those devotees who engage in that art. They have a lot of influence in the Vedic, how to carve Lord Indra, Jai Vijay, all these personalities. Very beautiful art form, great form, art architecture. All goes Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.